Hey yo, this is T.O.T. Thank you for dropping in today, if you have. I was recently thinking about leaks in regards to Honkai Star Rail, and while I'm not a player that keeps up with leaks because I just can't be bothered, there are a lot of players who do keep up with leaks. The thing that's a little weird for me being an outside person that's just looking in is I feel like there's a lot of players that take the version 1 of a character in beta and they just presume like this is going to be the way that the character releases. And if that character has any kind of nerfs, all of a sudden that individual no longer wants to even pull for the character. This is a little bit weird to me as an individual. So me coming from Honkai Impact 3rd, when I would watch beta testers like Marissa Honkai, for example, Marissa would always put some kind of notification in the vid like, hey, wait for the final release, things are subject to change. And it seems like this concept does not exist mentally for a lot of Honkai Star Rail players, and I'm very confused about this. The whole purpose of a beta is for a character to go through various changes. Sometimes they're for the better, sometimes they're for the worse. In my opinion, if a person is going to be emotionally swayed by the changes of a character, probably shouldn't keep up with leaks in general. Just wait for the final version to come out and then make your decision based off of that versus whatever the baseline V1 version of that character was. Also, beyond that, I feel there is this big disconnect and there's mixed communication. So when it comes to this type of discussions, there's two extreme camps. There's the camp that does not want any new characters to be stronger than the older characters, like maybe like sub less 5% difference in performance. And then you have individuals on the other extreme of the spectrum. They want every single character to be exponentially stronger than what came before them. There's problems with both of these camps. The camp that wants every character to be exponentially stronger than the other one, I don't think they're taking into consideration that this is going to make a lot of older characters completely irrelevant in the most objective way plausible. And for these people who are pushing for this exponential growth, that's not sustainable. Even on a business level, for example, that's not sustainable. Think about companies during like COVID that got exponential growth because people were at home, they were spending money. And so what a lot of companies were doing back then is that they were over investing into their products, thinking that they would continuously see exponential growth. It works out in the short run, but it doesn't work out on the long haul. Same kind of a concept applies to exponential power spikes with newer release characters in such a short amount of time, with new characters being compared with old characters. It works on the short-term basis, but it fails on a long-term basis in a lot of cases. Maybe not all, but in a lot of cases it fails. For individuals on the other end of the spectrum that want very, very tiny, minute differences, for some players out there has to be a greater reason to pull for a character besides just animations and characterization. There are players out there that do pull for power, and this has been something that used to be a criticism with Genshin Impact in its earlier years, is that, well, what's the point of me pulling for anything new if what I have is still clearing content? Again, not inherently a right or wrong with this, but just understand the mentality of a person who does pull for power. Another thing that I want to quickly talk about is extreme rhetoric. Now, you may have come across certain content creators, commenters, or people on Reddit, Discord, whatever the case may be, that use this type of extreme rhetoric. And it's normally either extremely in the positive or in the negative. And what I mean by this is that, for example, character A is broken or OP, or character B is extremely trash, don't pull for them at all. This is the kind of extreme rhetoric that I'm personally not a fan of. There's very few things in Honkai Star Rail that is just outright OP or broken. There are a lot of very strong characters in Honkai Star Rail, but my issue with this type of rhetoric is if almost everything starts getting labeled as OP and broken, then nothing is truly OP or broken in reality. On the other extreme, if everything is labeled as bad, then what is the metric on something being good or decent? Is this going to be a character that just ends up breaking the game just in general? Is just because this character might have not met your personal benchmark doesn't automatically mean that the character is bad in its nature and its execution. That's just my personal thoughts on that. I do my best to try to stay away from that extreme kind of rhetoric because I don't want to be misguiding anyone who may watch my videos. I don't care if it's just one person or if it ends up being 1,000 people. I have a responsibility to try to be level-headed with my observations on a lot of characters, and that's just my personal thoughts on that. Now, for individuals who do have a tendency of saying things are OP or broken, or they say that's trash, I don't inherently think they're always being intentionally dishonest, but I do think at the end of the day, individuals who have that extreme kind of rhetoric are more likely to spark up some kind of a conversation or get some kind of interaction versus the more level-headed person who says, yeah, character A, they are very strong. Doesn't really get as much of a reaction or a response versus the person who says something is OP or something is broken. Me personally, I'm not out here trying to chase a bag or anything like that. I get it. It may work for people trying to chase the bag. I'm not really concerned about it. I'm completely happy trying to be as level-headed as I can be when it comes to these character releases. And, you know, it's one of those ordeals where I will say it's to each their own.
You've already seen lots of unique lineups. Exactly, man. Yeah, people always find a way, dude. Yeah, the more I talk about this, especially with you, with people, with the YouTube chat and Twitch chat, the more I'm convinced that all these people bitching about how, you know, oh, these characters suck, blah blah blah. I think from now on, I'm gonna have to remind myself that I'm just gonna take that with a fucking massive grain of salt.
I think another downside with extreme rhetoric in the Honkai Star Rail community is that there is a demographic of level-headed players who have probably gotten to the point where some of them just stop engaging with the community online just in general because they understand that it's just the same thing over and over and over and over again. And the more that they see these type of arguments, the more that they take it with a massive mountain of salt. Let me give you an example. Let's just say there's an extremist online that says character XYZ is obsolete. And this is a limited 5-star character, for example, right? So this level-headed player, whether it be through their own personal experience or because they've done the research and they know of examples of other players using that said character to clear the in-game content to get 3 stars or whatever the case may be, could present that argument. What a lot of extremists are going to do at this point is mental gymnastics. They'll say stuff along the lines of, oh, well, that person had the signature light cone, or oh, this person had god tier relics and they had no signature light cone, or oh, look, they had 5-star limited support, so those characters were dragging that DPS across the finish line, or oh, it doesn't matter if there's 2 or 3 people who are making this character work. This does not invalidate the experience of thousands of other players playing this character. The thing is when there are extremists that say a character is obsolete, I'm under the mentality that it doesn't matter if you have this character's signature light cone or not. It doesn't matter if they have really cracked out relics or not. It doesn't matter if they have the best possible party members plausible. This character is not going to be able to perform as a limited 5-star, right? And that's just not the case when somebody provides these counter arguments. But again, a lot of extremists on both ends of the spectrum will go through their mental gymnastics, and I think this is extremely problematic. So in regards to the character kit reveals during the 3.1 video that we got for Mighty and Tribby, I'm just gonna be honest, I feel Mighty's animations are super dope. The dev team really cooked, and if he wasn't imaginary, I probably would be trying to get him. Oh, he's just such a cool character, my goodness. And another HP damage scaler, because prior to him, the only character that we had that covered that kind of scaling as the DPS anyways is Blade. What if I was to have pulled Mighty, what I would have tried to do is do some Mighty Blade shenanigans, maybe try to not run a sustain at all, since those 2 characters do have a decent amount of self-sustain in their kit, and seeing what I could have gotten done. But he's imaginary, and I believe I've marked off imaginary as one of the elements that I'm going to try to avoid at all costs, because I do want to retain Silverwolf's value on my account, so I have to be extremely cautious of that. In regards to Tribby, she actually reminds me of Yukon. So Yukon, you know, she would basically buff the team through her skill, through her ultimate, but the ultimate was also a way for her to deal some type of personal damage. And that seems to be the design philosophy that's been taken with Tribby to an extent. With that being said, I don't know how much personal damage Tribby will do. Her buffs do seem like they're going to be pretty solid at the bare minimum, providing all type res pin and increasing the damage that enemies take whenever her ultimate filters up is pretty nice. I'm not for sure if she's going to be able to use the Quantum Poet set that's currently out. If she's not able to use that set, I'll look for something else to use on her. And I think I'm going to go after Tribby. Part of the reason why is because with both Nikador and the upcoming Strife Titan, it seems to be this focus around having AoE coverage. Now, I don't know if that's going to be the general plan throughout the whole entire 3.x cycle, because I remember when we were in early Penacony, we got Black Swan and then we got Acheron like pretty early on. So it may have given this incentive that, oh, you know, maybe T.O.T will be really popping off and the Nihility will be really popping off. But I think what ended up being the primary focus of the 2.x patches was break/super break, as well as having a big emphasis on follow-up attack character types. So this could just be a potential bait and switch. I don't want to just say outright that it's just going to be AoE focused past 3.2. It's really hard to say, but but at least in the beginning part, we're definitely looking at some AoE focused content, especially since we got Anexa. Sorry if I can't pronounce his name correctly. He's going to be a wind irradiation character. Basically, he is going to be Honkai Star Rail's Sue variant. I'm not for sure how much in common these two characters are going to have personality wise, but I do get Sue vibes off of them for sure. And then Castoris, her being a remembrance character, Quantum, not really surprised about that. I think I would like to see Castoris be a blast style damage dealer, because we don't have a blast style 5-star limited character for Quantum as of yet, because Jade is full-blown AoE. Well, her single attack is blast, and then, you know, she's got her AoE and her follow-up and her ultimate, but, you know, for the most part, full-blown AoE. Sally, she is obviously Hunt, so single target. So I think if Castoris did most of her damage 3 target wise, I think that would be a perfect fit. One thing I'll say though about Sally, I can't pronounce her name right, I'm sorry. One thing that I will say though is, even if the scenario turns out that Castoris doesn't do more damage, it doesn't even matter. Like, Celia's cooked animation wise. Like, don't get me wrong, like, I like the whole nod that she does with the ultimate, you know, with the thumb across the nose, reminds me of Bruce Lee, and then she does this Mach 7 dash. Like, that's really cool. But Castoris summons a dragon. Castoris summons a literal dragon. I'm sorry, but like, animation wise, there's no competition. I think if most people had to pick one over the other, they're gonna pick the character who could summon a dragon. That's just really cool. I'm not surprised that they're gonna push Castoris for 3.2. That she's been one of the more heavily marketed characters, and I would like to see with the Poet set that's out. I suspect this is gonna be a set that she'll use, which kind of makes sense. She representative of death. Death can be a very slow thing, and I do wonder how they're gonna balance that out mechanically though. I am interested in trying to pull for her, although I'm going to have to try to see what I can do to try to address the speed issues if there is going to be some. I could pair her with Jade, because I do have Jade, so I'll have to just see how my pulls are looking during that time. I also need to see who the reruns are going to be for 3.2, because that may sabotage my plans as well. Like, Ron May hasn't gotten a rerun and Locha hasn't gotten a rerun, so I'm a little concerned about that. I might be in a bad bind in 3.2, but we'll see. I suspect we'll probably get a 20 pull login like we did with the first year's anniversary, and I think we probably will get like 80 pulls just doing the regular game content that patch, but that's just my prediction. The last thing I will very briefly mention is I think it was a very good move on MiHoYo's end to go ahead and do another rerun for Robin, since she does buffer characters' attacks. Given what we know moving forward, we know Tribby is going to be scaling off of HP, Mighty's going to be scaling off of HP, and Castoris has a very high chance of scaling off of HP if we reference the upcoming 3.1 planner set that looks like the design was made after her dragon and herself. So that's going to be 3 fairly close together HP scalers potentially, and getting Robin out of the way before that happens I think is really good, especially for players who decide to lock in and get Mighty and or Castoris. Robin's not exactly going to be the best pairing for those characters because they're not going to scale off of attack. We will see what will happen moving forward. I do think that this could allude to us getting more HP scalers during the 3.x era, but only time will tell. If you have taken out the time to listen to this or watch this, just want to say thank you for your time. You be safe out there. Deuces.
Bye.